I want you guys to know about a 6,000-year-old secret. 6,000 years, mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. We know the world, the universe and the world is round, but we're still using flat principles to approach it. If they use it, the world changes in a beautiful way. If they ignore it, we cease to exist.
Terrence Howard talks about Einstein's excitement over Walter Russell's book.
Well, now everyone wants to use it. If you can go to in my book, there's a picture of Einstein reading Walter Russell's second book, The Universal One.
Walter Russell's second book, he sent it out to 300 different universities and physicists.
Because when Walter wrote this in 1926, he sent it out to 300 different universities and physicists.
Einstein quotes that he should have spent more time reading Walter Russell's work.
And one of the quotes that Einstein says on his deathbed, I should have spent more time reading Walter Russell's work.
The experiment from 1887 proved whether there was an ether or an effect of an ether.
That's how, and now they're taking it under their wing. But remember the Michelson-Morley experiment from 1887. They were trying to prove whether there was an ether or an effect of an ether, or the quintessence that everything came from. That used to be called the fifth element.
Howard asserts that something doesn't come out of nothing.
That everything from antiquity, everyone understood that something doesn't come out of nothing. It's like when you look at the air, it looks clear, but you change the pressure condition, the balance of the change of pressure condition, we call that condensation.
You change the motion conditions of the clouds, whether it's moving quickly or slowly.
It creates clouds. And you change the motion conditions, whether it's moving quickly or slowly, it's going to become snow, it's going to become rain, it's going to become hell.
Terrence believes that everything comes down to just one of two forces.
So everything comes down to just one of two forces. Either you're breathing in and filling up something, or you're pouring it out. But the scientists, they ignored Walter Russell's work because he didn't include any equations inside of it. He talked philosophically regarding how things behave in comparison to laying down and following some Newtonian or calculus writing. You know, he said he based things based on let's explore them naturally, and that's what I did with my book. What Walter Russell was missing, he didn't have the wave conjugations. He didn't have the mirror shapes, the all shapes, and that was because of a mistake that was made 6,000 years ago, maybe. They took the flower of life, which was that symbol.
He explains how the 5 platonic solids connect to discoveries in the world.
You see the 5 platonic solids. Now all of our axioms, all of our postulates have been built off of these things. This is what Euclid went down to Egypt and pulled these things together. Pythagoras worked on them, and these were the undisputed fundamentals of God that he used to build. If you tap onto the flower of life, platonic solids things, it's going to take you to a video. Turn it, don't have to tap it, but it'll show you the flower of life that they took this from. But you'll see that instead of following the natural curvature of these 64 circles overlapping, they averaged the space where they met, and they invented straight lines.
Why did they do that?
Because they believed that the world was flat. They believed the world was flat at the time. And the church promoted. Pythagorean theorem comes off of this cube, a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
So they wanted to use all of these intertwining circles and create straight lines.
Because that's how they thought everything came down to, straight lines. They thought the world was flat. And I was like, oh my goodness. They didn't open the flower properly. So the next one would be the icosahedron,
Now, the flower of life, it's very, very old. The concept is very old. What was the origin of the concept?
It's the oldest symbol known to mankind. It's believed that it was Anki, the brother of Enlil, if you go by the Emerald
Sumerian
tablets.
text.
The Sumerian text, that was the one that created mankind. Because if you look at mankind, and there's a point I want to make with it. I want you to stay on the book, go to 134 on the book. And this is what that other gentleman being told me to do. He said, why don't you just take the pieces that make up the flower and put them together based on universal ratios.
Terrence dives into the details of the flower of life.
Now, this was made by David Johnson, one of our programmers, Argos Fuel. So if you go to the far left and tap on that, I took 4 of those triangles. And wow. And you can scroll around. This is what happens when 4 bubbles meet. This is the negative space where they can't touch each other. This is hydrogen. And as I was saying, electricity is always trying to get to the center of that triangle, but it gets pushed out. And now you see it has 4 contractive poles, which is the electric poles. Just go around it from like horizontally, yeah. It has 4 contractive poles because electricity is seeking a higher pressure condition and forcing it in, where magnetism is seeking a lower pressure condition and spun out. So the vortices, those tips, that's the magnetic field. That's where they begin. But it has an equal attractor and an equal amount of repulsion. So if you go to what happens when 8 bubbles meet, they gave me the patents to that. I called that the tetrient. This is
the negative space in between 8 bubbles.
8 bubbles. This is a negative space where 8 bubbles meet, and you can scroll around.
And this is ignored when they're concentrating on straight lines.
Completely, because this, if you look from the top, I haven't violated anything. It fits perfectly inside of there. But this is the negative space where 8 bubbles meet, but you'll notice it has 8 contractive poles, but it only has 6 magnetic poles, 6 vortices, so it has a greater electrical potential than a repulsion. So maybe this is the strong force, and the previous one was the weak force. So I was like, okay. I called this the Huntian after my son. So I was like, what happens when 6 bubbles meet? If you'll go to the one right in the center.
He boldly asserts that the flower of life's top view remains unviolated.
Now you see that it has these huge bubbles, fast moving, but there's 6 strong spheres that's going around this, but the greater attractor has grabbed the 2 weaker attractors. And this looks just like a photon, and guess what? It has 30 poles. What is the speed of light? 299,752,400 something. They rounded off to 300 million kilometers per second squared. But if you look at it from the top, you'll see that I haven't violated anything. This looks like what happens in nature. So I was like, okay, so they gave me the patents to this, but you'll see that there's 6 unaccounted electrical poles to it. So I was like, what happens when 12 bubbles meet if you go to the one right next to it? Another stable structure that we basically see in nature, but there's 4 unaccounted electrical poles to it. 4 spin around it. You can count those 4. You'll see 1 at the bottom and 3 on those sides. This is the basis of crystallization, the laws of crystallization that forms. And you can go to the last one. I was like, what happens when 24 bubbles meet? This is the negative space. If you pull to a horizontal on it, this is a negative space where 24 bubbles meet. This is where you cannot distinguish this from the background because all of the electrical potential has been accounted for. This would be the Bose-Einstein condensate, where something becomes indistinguishable from the fabric of space itself, the final state of matter. And the proof of this, the platonic solids, they have a thing called discrete symmetry. You can put the cubes together, maybe you can put the dodecahedrons together, but you can't put all of them together. But you can take the wave conjugations right here, and they form supersymmetrical systems.
Terrence introduces the concept of tetraterion conjugations.
This is one of 4 supersymmetrical systems that I patented. And the reason I patented it was because when Walter Russell put his stuff up, you have to just go down a little bit, and we're going to get to gravity. Not that one. We're going to get to gravity in a second. Not that one. We're not even there yet. There, Tetrotarian wave conjugations. Now, these are all of those systems put together. This is where 12 bubbles meet, the Aubrians. And then I put 5 of them together, and they make these natural starfish. But then when I put 10 of them together, they lay themselves out, and they predict all distribution of matter within the electric field. And you can see where 6 bubbles meet as you get to a higher point on it. Those where 6 bubbles are meeting, still fitting perfectly where the 12 bubbles are meeting, and where the 4 and where the 8. That's a super symmetrical system. I put 12, if I put 20 of those where 6 bubbles meet, the Antonians, they make a natural dodecahedron that's naturally curved. If I take where the 12 bubbles meet, that's where I made the linchpin from. Ultimately, from some of those pieces you got right there, that all shape of it. So that was one of the first things. But when Walter Russell came out with his book and he introduced his periodic table, he watched as different people went up and collected Nobel Prizes for deuterium, for tritium, for all these things that he had discovered. And I was like, okay, let me wait until the patents are granted before I'll talk about it. So that they won't be able to stop it. But what makes more sense? Where they invented straight lines in opening the flower, or where you actually take the individual pieces of the flower and put it together based on universal ratios? Which one do you think is how the givers of that knowledge intended for us to use it?
He offers a unique perspective on the nature of multiplication.
These are all physical representations that you've created?
Yep.
That are all of those things.
Same things. That's the Aubrian right there.
How is this received? Like when you talk to people about this?
Oh man, they first, because I didn't show them, I hadn't shown them, I introduced it with, let's talk about our fundamentals are a little bit off. There are no straight lines.
Right.
So I reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I saw him at an event up front, at Fox. And he was like, hey man, yeah, I'd love for you to come on my show, do my radio, do my TV thing. I would love that. I was like, yeah, but I've got something I want to introduce to you. And it was only 36 pages. It was a treatise. And I told him it was controversial. And I sent him over the 36-page thing that had the wave conjugations in it. But I started it off with 1 × 1 = 2. And he went in on my treatise, redlined everything. He attacked that I had talked about Walter Russell and Victor Schauberger and John Keeley and Tesla as the people that I looked up to. He attacked them, but then he started attacking, the 1 × 1 = 2.
How did he attack them?
Oh, he was because I asked him. I said, under what conditions? I said, it's illogical where the square root of a number added to itself will equal more than that number squared. But that's what happens with the square root of 2. That's what happens with most of the numbers. I was like, how is it that multiplication, if it means to make more and increase in number, how is 1 × 1 = 1 part of the multiplication table? Now, I understand that if you're seeing it one time.
Right.
But we call that once. But the moment that you add the times in there, that multiplicative indicator, that means there's more than 1. So now each equation is supposed to be balanced. That equal sign is supposed to show that there's a balance between these 2 numbers over here and a balance on this one over here. What happened to the other one in this equation? It didn't equate. And then I took the square root of that number. I took the square root of 2. Because all this started in 3rd grade. I was arguing with my teacher because we're talking about the square root of 100.
Terrence mentions how Neil deGrasse Tyson ignored his discoveries.
So back to Neil deGrasse Tyson and his critique of
Tesla.
Tesla.
So he threw he was like, well, Tesla stuff worked, but Tesla was never really respected and out there. And I guess he wanted me to support Bohr or Schringer or Feynman or any of those people. And I'm looking at the Feynman diagrams I'm like, you made all these things up. You're basically doing the Mr. Spock thing. If you want to find the answer to something, then you cancel out all the possibilities, all other possibilities, and you root it down to one thing. So that means going through the whole universe to answer one question. And that's the problem with probability. That's the problem with Heisenberg uncertainty. That's the problem with Schrodinger. All of those were just these probabilities because they had taken the ether out. They forgot the electromagnetic wave. Mm-hmm. It had to have a medium in which it followed on. It had to have something in which it was moving on.
They don't exist in isolation.
No, they do not. And it cannot be the cause of its own action. An effect can never be the cause of the action. The chicken cannot come the egg cannot come before the chicken. The chicken has to be there first in order to lay it. It has to mate. And what Einstein left out was the equal and opposite of magnetism. So back to Neil deGrasse, when he wrote his response to my paper, and he said, if you have any other questions, you're going to have to see somebody else, and he wouldn't take my calls anymore. I was like, okay. So I wrote the book based off of those responses, and I reached out to another guy.
Nikola Tesla's insight into the power of 3, 6, and 9 is hailed as the key to the universe.
Remember, Nikola Tesla said if mankind understood the magnificence of the numbers 3, 6, and 9, he would have the keys to the secrets of the universe. Like I said, when Tesla said if mankind could understand the significance of 3, 6, and 9, he have keys to the universe. Will you play that video for me, Jamie? The linchpin bonding? Yeah, the linchpin bonding. I think it'll be, well, there's 3 of them. Yes, that one right there. Now, before we play it, if you count the struts and watch how many struts bond as it becomes this right here.
Okay.
And just count it as it goes. Just let it play. You'll see 1, 2, 3. And we know this is a magnetism because it's expanding in the center. Now you'll see 6 of these bonds. And those colors going across there is basically the periodic table. 5, 6, yep. And then the last one comes in, and now you have your 9. And this is magnetism. Like I said, magnetism expands at the center. So you have your 3, 6, 9, and it's back to that same fractal again. So now what you do, if you will do me a favor.
So when Tesla said that, what did he mean?
He was talking about these numbers, this interaction of these 3, 6, and 9. But this is all of them coming around the tetrahedron at 120 degrees. Wow. This is how they all behave, and this is the fractal because it keeps getting back to these 4 vortices. But now I want to show you, after let this go again so they could see it, how all of this is the grand unified field put together. Now I want to show you electricity in this space, which will be the next one. And you'll see 5 linchpins bonding. And you'll see that it collapses the dodecahedron. And that's the release of energy, but it'll still make that same tetrahedral space. Watch. So when I talk about materials engineering now being able to be manipulated, and you could see that the dodecahedron has been collapsed, and these other, because electricity is seeking higher pressure conditions. It's more dense, but we're back to and these 5 will keep bonding with other 5s, building predictable structures, not haphazard things. 4 of these will come together and make a larger tetrahedron, and then those will bond and make larger. This is Jesus walking on water. This is the proof in the pudding. They don't have this for their chemical engineering programs now. They don't need those models of just a ball and just that little rod anymore. They now have what's necessary. The carbon line is that yellow line in between it. And when we put this in the solar apex and replace the sun with it, it predicts every star on the galactic plane, the ecliptic plane, and the celestial plane. Every single star it predicts. And when we put groups of linchpin, it predicts entire relationships. So now, that's why I said the Heisenberg Heisenberg uncertainty principle is out the window, because now with this combined with the wave conjugations or with the mirror shapes, you can, whether it's expanding or contracting, we can now predict precisely where everything shall occur. And the linchpins have been, I've included all of that into the AI for the linchpins. And the best thing about IBM and all of those other companies, Raytheon, taking my patent and making money off of it, since I have priority, since I invented it, I can now use any innovation that they've done off of my patent and not have to pay them a licensing fee.
Terrence critiques current calculators for maintaining a misleading linear perspective.
The calculator right now is still saying that we're on a linear path. And it's just multiplying things in a compartmentalized space.
So by reductionist viewpoint, by breaking things down to simple numbers, that you really can't just do that.
You can try to do it, but it's like the piano. Remember the piano, the earlier pianos, they had, before they compartmentalized, and everything was, remember that everything in the universe expands as a sphere. Everything. Even music expands as a sphere. But what they did with the piano is they took all the 12 notes and then they just start them all over again instead of accounting for the expansion, that space. So you would never, if you're looking at the periodic table, you would never get to the titanium or to the rubidium or to the cesium, because they would all keep it with just the 7 tones. They don't allow for the necessary expansion, so you don't have all of these other isotopes to use, because they keep things here. You don't allow your child, nope, you're not going to get taller. I need you to stay just at 4 feet. That's the height. That's how high you can go. You will not be allowed to grow further. And we naturally keep growing and expanding out. So they have to allow that, but their math doesn't allow it because it believes in a 2-dimensional space. And remember, there are no 2-dimensional spaces, because in order for anything to be perceived, it has to be measurable. And measurable needs 3 dimensions, but it actually needs 4. It needs your perspective. You are the 4th dimension. And that's what Walter Russell also talked about, that it was 4 things coming together. And that's what woke me back up. And I was like, 4 bubbles meeting. But he still believed in the idea of straight lines. He was still hemmed in by it.
He highlights the irony of a rounded universe still being governed by flat principles.
We know the world, the universe and the world is round, but we're still using flat principles to approach it. Greatest things about the linchpin is it's also submersible. And so one of the main points is, I'm about to build 5 smaller ones. The only thing that I'm missing right now, because we have built a ton of, we've got like 20 different prototypes that.
So when you say submersible, you mean transmedium?
No, like transmedium. They can go underwater.
Like these UAPs.
Yeah, but no, we can go underwater,
right,
and be able to go now.
To maneuver through
the
water.
And be able to grab. They can identify where that gold is.
Oh, God. And
now they can go down and pull it up themselves without even informing the government about it. I don't need any of that other stuff. And I think that's why this has been suppressed. When I first took it over to Raytheon, I have these 2 test pilots, both colonels, been there for 30 years, one at Boeing, one at Raytheon. He said, the people at Raytheon said, let's see if he can keep it. They didn't know I had all these other patents surrounding it that they had no idea, but its usage, if they use it, the world changes in a beautiful way. If they ignore it, we cease to exist, because we'll continue down this wrong path.
So do you think that intelligent life in all places of the universe has figured this out already?
If they're traveling here, they have, because you don't use power to go from one place to another. You decouple from the electric pull. You decouple from the Earth, and guess what? The Earth pulls away from you at its speed. You decouple from the solar system, it pulls away at its speed. You decouple from the galaxy, it pulls away from you. That's all you really need to do, but they didn't know how to decouple. In 2 years, I won't need props anymore. I'll use molecular excitation, which is all inside of the patents that I've put in there. That you can do that, or you can just, like with music, use a discordant tone and those tones will push away. There's a particular tone that the earth is on. There's a particular tone, the key of A. It's 432 hertz, the Schumann resonance. All you have to do is have the opposite tone to that, and it will be pushed away from it. You don't, the same way a bubble at the bottom of the ocean doesn't use any energy to get to the top, but because it's completely in opposition to its environment, the environment pushes it away. That's what you do if you're an intelligent race. You can use an oar if you're trying to swim across the ocean. You can get across there, but an intelligent species, like Alan Watts said, will use a sail, and they'll tack and make their way across.